He only wanted a place to sleep, but the alien girls had bigger plans for the only man in town. Captain Trent Morgan wiped sweat from his brow as he trudged up the dusty path toward the settlement of Nevolis. The twin suns of this backwater planet beat down mercilessly on his broad shoulders, and his heavy metal cases were becoming more burdensome with each step. After 15 years of military service across 17 different star systems, all he wanted was a decent bed and some peace and quiet. Just one night, he muttered to himself. Then back to the transport hub and off this rock. His military discharge had been finalized 3 weeks ago, and he'd been hopping from planet to planet since, trying to figure out where in the vast universe a retired human combat specialist belonged. The answer certainly wasn't here, a tiny settlement on an unmapped world that had only appeared in his navigation system when his shuttle developed fuel line problems. As Trent crested the hill, Nevolis came into full view, a collection of simple structures with metallic roofs that gleamed in the harsh sunlight. The settlement was smaller than he expected, maybe 30 buildings in total, surrounded by fields of strange blue-tinged crops. The guest house wasn't hard to spot. It was the only gray building with a worn sign hanging above its entrance. But what caught Trent's attention weren't the accommodations, but rather the welcoming committee. 3 women stood on the steps of the guest house. At least, they looked like women, if women had smooth, deep blue skin and flowing silver white hair that seemed to shimmer with its own inner light. They were unmistakably alien, yet strikingly humanoid in their features and proportions. The first wore a form-fitting black outfit that accentuated every curve of her athletic body. She leaned against the railing with casual confidence, her eyes immediately locking onto Trent with undisguised interest. The second stood with arms crossed, wearing a tight blue bodysuit with a plunging neckline. Her posture radiated authority and her expression was serious, almost calculating. The third hung back slightly, dressed in a flowing white garment. She seemed more reserved than her companions, watching him with quiet curiosity. "Well, shit," Trent muttered under his breath. He'd hoped to slip into town unnoticed, get some rest, and leave. This was already more attention than he wanted. As he approached, the woman in black straightened and stepped forward. Her silver hair caught the sunlight, creating an almost halo-like effect around her striking features. "Welcome, human male," she said, her voice carrying a musical quality that human vocal cords could never produce. "We were told you'd be staying for one night." Her lips curved into a smile that was both welcoming and somehow predatory. "I hope you enjoy it. It's been a while since we've had a guest of your gender." Trent set down his cases, rolling his shoulders to ease the tension. "Just looking for a place to crash." "Nothing fancy." The woman in the blue bodysuit stepped forward. "I'm Kita, head of settlement security." Her eyes traveled from his broad shoulders down to his worn combat boots. "You're the only male visitor we've had in over 3 cycles." "Actually," Trent said, glancing around, "I don't see any men at all. Is that normal for this place?" The 3 women exchanged glances, and the one in black laughed softly. "Oh, you noticed that quickly." "Yes, Nevolis is currently an all-female settlement. The males of our species are elsewhere." "Diplomatic way of putting it, Lila," the one in blue, Kita said with a snort. "The truth is, our males were all conscripted for the mining colonies 2 years ago. Government mandate. Left us to run everything ourselves." The quiet one in white finally spoke, her voice softer than the others. "I'm Alani. I manage the guest house." She gestured toward the door. "Your room is ready if you'd like to rest." Trent nodded, grateful for the offer. "Thanks, it's been a long journey." As he reached for his cases, Lila's hand brushed against his. "Allow me to show you around first. Nevolis may be small, but we have our charms." The double meaning in her words wasn't subtle. "I appreciate the offer, but..." "We insist," Kita cut in. "It's protocol for all visitors. Security measures." Trent recognized an order when he heard one, regardless of species. "Lead the way then." As they walked through the settlement, Trent became increasingly aware of the attention he was drawing. Female aliens of various ages stopped their activities to stare. Some whispered to each other, others smiled or waved, a few even followed at a distance. "You're causing quite a stir," Lila commented, clearly enjoying the situation. "I'm getting that impression," Trent replied dryly. "Is human anatomy that fascinating?" Kita gave him a sidelong glance. It's not just that you're human, it's that you're male. Any male would cause this reaction right now. Ilani, who had been quiet, added, "Our society values balance. The absence of males has been difficult for many reasons, some practical, some cultural, some personal." As they approached what appeared to be the settlement's central plaza, a crowd of blue-skinned women had gathered, pretending to go about their business while stealing glances at him. "Damn," Trent muttered. "I'm starting to feel like the last steak at a buffet." Lila laughed, a melodious sound that somehow made him both relaxed and wary. "Don't worry, human. We don't bite." She paused, her silver eyes glinting mischievously. "Unless you want us to." Trent had faced down hostile aliens on a dozen worlds, but something about this situation made him more uncomfortable than any battlefield. He was beginning to suspect that his plan for a quiet night's rest was rapidly becoming the least likely outcome of his stay in Nevolis. Trent followed his three blue-skinned guides back to the guest house, increasingly aware of the stares from every female they passed. By the time they reached the building, a small crowd had gathered at a respectful distance, their silver eyes gleaming with undisguised curiosity. "Is this normal?" Trent asked as Ilani unlocked the guest house door. "I feel like I'm on display at a museum." Lila's musical laugh echoed in the entryway. "You're a novelty, human. Most of these women haven't seen a male of any species in over 2 years." Inside, the guest house was surprisingly comfortable. Simple furnishings with clean lines, soft lighting that complemented the blue-tinted walls. Ilani showed him to a spacious room on the second floor, with a large bed and windows overlooking the settlement. "I'll prepare some refreshments," she said, her quiet voice barely audible as she slipped out. Kita positioned herself by the door, arms crossed, while Lila made herself comfortable on a cushioned bench near the window. Neither seemed inclined to leave him alone. "So," Trent said, setting his cases down, "is there something you're not telling me? Because this doesn't feel like standard hospitality protocol." Kita and Lila exchanged glances. After a moment of silent communication, Kita nodded. "Your arrival is fortuitous," Lila began, leaning forward. "Our society has a biological peculiarity that we don't often share with outsiders." Trent raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening." "The females of our species require regular exposure to certain pheromones produced only by males," Kita explained, her professional tone at odds with the intimate subject matter. "Without this exposure, we experience gradual biological imbalances that affect our health and well-being." "Nothing immediately life-threatening," Lila added quickly, seeing Trent's expression. "But over time, it causes mood disturbances, immune system weaknesses, and other subtle issues." "And you think I can help with this?" Trent asked skeptically. "I'm not even the same species." Lila smiled. "That's the interesting part. Our scientists have discovered that human male pheromones are surprisingly compatible with our biology, even more effective than our own males in some ways." Ilani returned with a tray of colorful beverages. As she set it down, she added, "It's why human visitors are so valued here. Your presence alone can help stabilize our biological rhythms." "Just my presence?" Trent asked, accepting a glass of something that smelled like cinnamon and citrus. "Proximity is beneficial," Kita said. "More intimate contact would be more effective, but is not required." Trent nearly choked on his drink. "I see. We're not barbarians," Lila said with a smirk. "We're simply explaining our biological reality and proposing a mutually beneficial arrangement, which is stay longer than one night," Kita stated. "A week, perhaps. Allow the women of Nevolis to benefit from your presence. In exchange, we offer free accommodation, meals, and..." She paused, searching for the right words. "Cultural exchange opportunities." "Cultural exchange," Trent repeated, suspicious of the euphemism. Ilani, who had been quiet, spoke up. "Our society values knowledge sharing. We would be honored to learn about human customs and traditions while teaching you about our own." "Some of our traditions involve energy exchange rituals," Lila added, her silver eyes gleaming. "Nothing inappropriate, but they do involve forms of proximity that you might find interesting." Trent took a long drink, considering their proposal. He'd been wandering aimlessly since his discharge, with no particular destination in mind. A week in one place might be a welcome change. And if I say no, then you stay one night as planned and leave tomorrow, Kita said simply. We don't force anyone to stay, but your presence would be appreciated. Trent studied the three women. Kita's authoritative stance couldn't quite hide the subtle signs of the imbalance they'd mentioned. Slight shadows under her eyes, a barely perceptible tremor in her hands. Lila's flirtatious confidence seemed partly a cover for something more vulnerable. And quiet Alani's pallor suggested she might be suffering the most from this biological quirk. I need to think about it, he said finally. Of course, Lila nodded. In the meantime, would you join us for dinner? The entire settlement is eager to meet you, and it would be a chance to experience our hospitality before making your decision. And learn more about our cultural practices, Alani added softly. The evening meal is an important ritual for us. Trent considered declining, but curiosity got the better of him. All right, dinner it is. Excellent. Lila clapped her hands together. I'll help you prepare. Our dining customs might be different from what you're used to. I can handle alien dining etiquette, Trent said dryly. I've eaten with 17 different species across the galaxy. Perhaps, Kita said with the first hint of a smile he'd seen from her, but I doubt any of them required you to participate in a pre-meal harmony ritual with your dining companions. What now? Lila's laugh filled the room. It's a form of energy alignment, nothing complex, just a simple touch-based meditation that helps dining companions synchronize their energies before sharing food. Touch-based? Trent repeated flatly. Hand-holding primarily, Alani clarified, a faint purple blush coloring her blue cheeks. Though more advanced practitioners might include other forms of contact. Trent sighed. He was beginning to understand that his quiet night of rest had never been in the cards. The question now was how deeply he wanted to immerse himself in the customs of Nevolis, and how close he was willing to get to its fascinating inhabitants. The communal dining hall of Nevolis was unlike anything Trent had experienced in his travels. Circular tables arranged beneath a domed ceiling of translucent material that captured the fading light of the twin suns, casting everything in a warm, amber glow. At least 60 blue-skinned women had gathered for the evening meal, all of them stealing glances at the human in their midst. They're not usually this quiet, Lila whispered as she guided Trent to a central table. You've made quite an impression. Trent nodded, acutely aware of the attention. I'm getting that. Kita and Alani joined them at the table, along with 3 older women who were introduced as the settlement's council of elders. The eldest, matriarch Celine, studied Trent with keen silver eyes that seemed to miss nothing. Captain Morgan, she said, her voice carrying the weight of authority, we are honored by your presence. Lila tells me you're considering extending your stay. I'm weighing my options, Trent replied diplomatically. The matriarch nodded. Before we begin our meal, perhaps you would participate in our harmony ritual? It would be educational for you and beneficial for us. Trent glanced at Lila, who gave him an encouraging nod. I'll guide you through it, she promised. All right, he agreed. But you'll have to show me how. The dining hall grew quieter as Lila took Trent's hands in hers. Her skin was surprisingly warm, almost hot to the touch, and softer than he expected. Around the table, the others joined hands, forming a circle. Close your eyes, Lila instructed softly. Feel the energy flowing between us. In our culture, we believe that sharing energy before sharing food creates harmony and strengthens bonds. Trent closed his eyes, feeling slightly foolish but willing to respect their customs. At first, he felt nothing beyond the warmth of Lila's hands. Then gradually, a strange sensation began to build. A tingling that started where their skin touched and spread up his arms. It wasn't unpleasant. In fact, it was rather like the rush of adrenaline before a drop into combat, but gentler, more controlled. You're doing well, Lila murmured. Now focus on sharing your energy with me. Give and receive in equal measure. Trent wasn't sure how to share energy, but he tried to relax and follow her lead. The tingling intensified, and he became aware of a subtle rhythm, almost like a heartbeat pulsing between them. When he opened his eyes, he was startled to see a faint luminescence where their hands joined, a soft, golden glow that contrasted with the blue of her skin. Around the table, Similar glows of varying intensity connected the other diners. "What the hell?" he whispered. Lila's eyes sparkled. "It's the visible manifestation of energy exchange. And yours." She looked down at their joined hands with something like awe. "Yours is stronger than I've ever seen with an off-worlder." Across the table, Ilani was watching with wide eyes, while Kita's usual stern expression had softened into something closer to wonder. "The harmony is strong," Matriarch Celine announced, breaking the spell. "Let us eat and celebrate our visitor." The meal that followed was a blur of new tastes and textures, but Trent found it difficult to focus on the food. The lingering sensation from the harmony ritual had left him feeling oddly energized yet relaxed, as if he'd just had the perfect amount of a particularly good whiskey. More striking was the visible change in the women around him. The subtle signs of strain he'd noticed earlier, the shadows under Kita's eyes, Eleni's pallor, had diminished. They seemed more vibrant, their movements more fluid, their laughter more frequent. "Your presence is already helping," Eleni said quietly when she caught him observing her. The harmony ritual accelerated the effect. "I can see that," Trent replied. "It's remarkable." After the meal, as the gathering broke into smaller conversational groups, Kita approached him with a cup of something that smelled potent. "A traditional after-dinner spirit," she explained, handing it to him, "made from fermented lunar berries." Trent took a cautious sip. It tasted like honey and fire. "Strong stuff." "Like its maker," Kita replied with the hint of a smile. It was the first time he'd seen her truly relax. "I wanted to thank you for participating in our ritual. I know it must seem strange to you." "I've seen stranger things in my travels," Trent admitted, though the glowing hands were a new one. "The glow is a measure of compatibility," she explained, sipping her own drink. "The brighter the glow, the more effective the energy exchange." She paused in studying him. "Yours was exceptionally bright with Lila. And what does that mean exactly?" Kita's silver eyes met his directly. "It means you could help her, help all of us, more than any visitor we've had." She hesitated. "There are more advanced rituals that would amplify the effect. More intimate exchanges." Trent felt his pulse quicken. "I'm guessing these aren't performed in the dining hall?" "No," Kita confirmed. "They're private rituals, conducted in sacred spaces." She gestured toward a doorway where Lila and Ilani were waiting. "We have such a space prepared, if you're willing." Trent considered his options. He'd come to Nevolis seeking a place to rest, not entanglement in alien rituals or biological dependencies. Yet he couldn't deny the pull he felt toward these three women, especially after witnessing how his mere presence improved their well-being. "What exactly would these rituals involve?" he asked cautiously. Kita's expression grew serious. "Nothing you're unwilling to give. The exchange must be freely offered on both sides to be effective." She placed a hand on his arm, and even through his sleeve, he felt that same tingling energy. "But I think you already know what we're asking." Trent did know. The subtext had been clear from the moment they'd explained their biological need for male pheromones. What surprised him was his own willingness to consider it. "All right," he said finally, "show me this sacred space." The sacred space was nestled beneath the settlement, accessed through a winding staircase carved directly into the bedrock. As they descended, bioluminescent fungi cast an ethereal blue glow across the stone walls, creating patterns that seemed to shift and dance with each step. "This chamber predates our settlement," Lila explained, her voice hushed with reverence. "Our ancestors discovered it when they first arrived on this world 3 centuries ago." The staircase opened into a circular chamber dominated by a shallow pool in its center. The water glowed with the same bioluminescence as the fungi, creating rippling patterns of light across the domed ceiling. Around the pool, cushions and low couches were arranged in a semicircle. "It's beautiful," Trent said, genuinely impressed. The room had a tranquil energy that immediately put him at ease. Ilani moved to a stone shelf along the wall where various vials and containers were arranged. "The water contains trace minerals that amplify energy exchange," she explained, selecting a small crystal bottle. "We use these oils to enhance the connection." Kita began lighting incense in braziers around the room. "The ritual we're proposing is called the Resonance of Souls. It's traditionally performed between bonded pairs, but can be adapted for our unique situation. And what exactly does this ritual involve? Trent asked, watching as Alani mixed oils in a small bowl. Physical connection, Lila said simply, meeting his eyes. But more importantly, a temporary psychic bond. Our minds will touch, allowing us to share emotions, sensations, even memories. Trent hesitated. That sounds invasive. It's not a one-way connection, Kida assured him. The exchange goes both ways. We would be equally vulnerable to you. And there's something else, Alani added, approaching with the bowl of fragrant oil. Something we haven't told you yet. Trent tensed. I'm listening. I'm not just the guest house manager, she said softly. I'm a biochemist. I've been researching solutions to our biological dependency since the males were conscripted. And, Trent prompted, sensing there was more. And when you arrived, my instruments detected something unique in your pheromone signature. Something, I've never seen in any species we've encountered. She set the bowl down on a small table. With your permission, I'd like to collect samples during our exchange. It could help me develop a synthetic compound that would free our people from dependency. Trent looked between the three women, understanding dawning. So that's the real reason you want me to stay? I'm a research subject. No, Lila said firmly, taking his hand. The now familiar tingling began immediately. Your biological uniqueness is a fortunate discovery, but our invitation was sincere. We need what you can provide on multiple levels. Kida stepped closer, her usual authoritative demeanor softened by something like vulnerability. The ritual we're proposing would help us immediately, while Elani's research could help our people long-term. Both are important, but both require your willing participation, Elani added. The ritual especially. The connection won't form if any participant is reluctant. Trent considered their words. He'd never been one to shy away from new experiences, and if he was honest with himself, the attraction he felt toward these three women went beyond mere physical appreciation. There was something about their directness, their unapologetic need, that appealed to him after years of military protocol and political games. All right, he said finally, I'll participate in your ritual. And you can collect your samples, Elani. But I want to know exactly what I'm getting into with this psychic bond. Relief visibly washed over the three women. Lila squeezed his hand. The bond is temporary. It will fade within hours after the ritual ends. While connected, we'll share sensations and emotions freely. Deeper memories require deliberate sharing. It's considered deeply intimate, Kida added, more so than physical connection alone. Among our people, Alani said, it's believed that the resonance reveals true compatibility between souls. It's rarely performed outside established relationships. Trent nodded, understanding the significance of what they were offering. And the four of us will be connected simultaneously? Yes, Lila confirmed. I'll guide the connection, as I have the most experience with the ritual. As they prepared, removing shoes and outer garments, Trent felt a mixture of anticipation and nervousness. He'd connected physically with non-humans before. The galaxy was full of compatible species, but never on this level of intimacy. They arranged themselves around the glowing pool, sitting cross-legged on cushions. Elani applied the fragrant oil to their temples and wrists, its scent reminiscent of jasmine and something alien but pleasant. Close your eyes, Lila instructed, taking Trent's hands. Kida and Elani completed the circle, each connecting to him and to each other. Focus on your breathing. Feel the energy flowing between us, just as in the harmony ritual, but deeper now. Open yourself to the connection. Trent closed his eyes and concentrated on the sensation of their joined hands. The tingling began almost immediately, stronger than before, spreading up his arms and across his chest. He could feel his heartbeat synchronizing with theirs, 4 distinct rhythms gradually aligning into a single, powerful pulse. Then, without warning, the world behind his eyelids exploded with color and sensation. He gasped as the first wave of emotion washed over him. Not his own feelings, but a complex tapestry of longing, curiosity, and hope that could only belong to the 3 women connected to him. I can feel you, he whispered, amazed. And we feel you, Lila's voice came, both audible and somehow resonating directly in his mind. The connection is forming. Now let us truly see each other. The psychic connection deepened like a plunge into warm water. Trent felt himself suspended in a space that existed somewhere between minds, not quite physical, yet more substantial than imagination. Colors swirled around him, gradually resolving into coherent images and sensations. The first memory hit him with unexpected force. Kita's memory, he somehow knew, of standing at Nevolis's northern gate as government ships descended. The fear and anger she'd felt as uniformed officials herded the settlement's mails into transport vessels. Her helplessness as her brother looked back one final time before the doors sealed shut. "They told us it was temporary," Kita's voice echoed through the memory. "6 months of labor. It's been over 2 years." The scene shifted to Lila, addressing a room of increasingly desperate women. "We must maintain order," she was saying, though Trent could feel her own uncertainty beneath the confident facade. "They will return. We must ensure Nevolis remains a home worth returning to." Then Alani in her laboratory working through the night, surrounded by failed experiments. The crushing disappointment each time a synthetic compound broke down. The growing symptoms of pheromone deprivation that she couldn't solve with science. "We've shared our burden with you." Lila's voice guided him through the swirling memories. "Now show us yours, Trent Morgan." Without conscious effort, Trent felt his own memories rising to the surface. His final military mission, a peacekeeping operation gone wrong when local insurgents ambushed his unit. The weight of command as he made split-second decisions that saved most but not all of his people. The hollow ceremony of his honorable discharge when all he could think about were the faces of those he couldn't bring home. He felt the women's reactions, their awe at his courage, their sympathy for his loss, their respect for his leadership. But most surprisingly, he felt their admiration for his distinctly human response to tragedy, his refusal to become hardened or cruel despite the violence he'd witnessed. "Your species is remarkable," Ilani's thoughts whispered through the connection. "Where others become brutal from such experiences, you've maintained compassion." The memory exchange continued, flowing between them like a conversation without words. Trent shared his aimless wanderings since leaving military service, his search for purpose. They shared their daily struggles to maintain Nevolis in the absence of half its population. As the ritual progressed, their connection transcended mere memory sharing. Physical sensations intensified. The warmth where their hands joined spread throughout Trent's body, creating waves of pleasure that echoed back and forth between them, amplified with each exchange. Through the haze of shared sensation, Trent became aware of Eleni's scientific mind, still partially focused on observation. Even as she participated fully in their intimate connection, part of her was analyzing the unique properties of his pheromones as they interacted with their biology. Suddenly, her excitement cut through the sensual fog. "It's incredible," her thoughts projected clearly. "Your compounds aren't just compatible with our biology, they're transformative." Images from her scientific understanding flowed into the shared consciousness. Complex molecular structures that Trent couldn't fully comprehend, but whose significance was clear through her emotional response. "What does it mean?" he projected back. "Your pheromones contain elements that could permanently alter our receptors," she explained, her scientific precision somehow undimmed by the intimacy they were sharing. "Not just a temporary relief, but a fundamental change to our biology." Lila's thoughts joined the exchange. "A cure? Is that possible?" "More than a cure," Eleni responded. "An evolution, but it would require prolonged exposure. Weeks, perhaps months of regular contact." The implication hung in their shared consciousness. Trent would need to stay in Nevolia much longer than planned, not just overnight, not just a week, but potentially for months. As if sensing his hesitation, Kita's thoughts reached out. "We would never force such a commitment. The choice must be yours." Their physical connection intensified, the pleasure building as their emotions and desires mingled freely. Trent found himself unable to distinguish his own want from theirs. It had become a single shared need that transcended individual desire. When the ritual finally reached its culmination, the psychic bond flared with blinding intensity. For one breathtaking moment, Trent felt as though he existed in four bodies simultaneously, experiencing each perspective in perfect clarity. The sensation was overwhelming, beyond anything he'd ever imagined possible. Gradually, the connection began to fade. The shared consciousness gently separated back into individual minds, though threads of awareness still linked them together. Trent opened his eyes to find himself lying beside the glowing pool, the three women similarly recovering from the intensity of their experience. "That was he began, finding words inadequate. "Yes," Lila agreed, her silver eyes meeting his with new understanding. "It was." Eleni sat up slowly, her scientist's mind already processing what they'd discovered. "Well, your biology is remarkable, Trent. What I sensed during our connection, it could change everything for our people." Keita reached for a robe, her usual composure returning despite the intimacy they'd just shared. "But as we agreed, the choice is yours. We won't hold you to anything you don't freely choose." Trent sat up, feeling strangely energized despite the intensity of their exchange. The lingering connection allowed him to sense their hope, their desire for him to stay, but also their genuine respect for his autonomy. "I need time to think," he said finally. "This is a lot to process." "Of course," Lila nodded. "The bond will fade completely by morning. Perhaps it's best to make such decisions with a clear mind." As they prepared to leave the sacred chamber, Trent caught Eleni studying him with scientific curiosity. "What?" he asked. "I'm just wondering," she said thoughtfully, "what effect our biology might be having on you. The exchange goes both ways after all." It was a question Trent hadn't considered, and one that would occupy his thoughts as they ascended back to the world above. Trent woke the next morning to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows. For a moment, he struggled to remember where he was. The guest house in Nevelis, not his shuttle, not a military barracks. The events of the previous night flooded back with startling clarity. The ritual, the psychic connection, Eleni's discovery about his pheromones. He sat up, running a hand through his hair, and froze. Something was different. The room seemed sharper somehow, colors more vibrant, sounds more distinct. He could hear conversations from outside that should have been too distant to perceive. Women discussing crop rotations in the fields beyond the settlement. More disconcerting was the faint blue luminescence visible beneath his skin, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. It was subtle. You'd miss it if you weren't looking, but undeniably present. "What the hell?" he muttered, examining his forearm in the morning light. A knock at the door interrupted his self-examination. "Trent, are you awake?" Eleni's voice carried through the door, and with it, a strange awareness of her presence that transcended normal perception. "Come in," he called, hastily pulling on a shirt. Eleni entered, carrying a tray with breakfast and what looked like scientific equipment. She stopped short when she saw him, her silver eyes widening. "You're glowing," she said, setting the tray down and approaching him with professional curiosity. "Yeah, I noticed," Trent replied dryly. "That's not all. I can hear conversations from across the settlement, and I knew it was you at the door before you spoke." Eleni's expression shifted from surprise to scientific fascination. She reached for a handheld scanner from her tray. "May I?" Trent nodded, extending his arm. As she ran the device over his skin, he found himself acutely aware of her proximity in a way that went beyond a physical attraction. He could sense her emotions, her scientific excitement, her concern, and beneath it all, a lingering warmth from their shared experience the night before. "The bond was supposed to fade," he said quietly. It has mostly," Eleni replied, studying the scanner's readings. "What you're experiencing is something different. The ritual appears to have catalyzed changes in your biology. Your cells are absorbing and processing elements from our biochemistry." "Is it dangerous?" "I don't think so," she said, though her tone wasn't entirely convincing. "It's more like adaptation. Your human physiology is remarkably adaptive, more so than any species I've studied." Before Trent could respond, the door opened again as Lila and Keita entered. Like Eleni, they stopped short at the sight of him. "You can see it too?" Trent asked. "The glow?" "Yes," Keita confirmed, approaching cautiously. "How do you feel?" "Different," Trent admitted. "Enhanced somehow. And I can sense all three of you, even though the bond supposedly faded." Lila sat beside him on the bed, taking his hand. The contact sent a jolt of awareness through him, not just physical sensation, but an immediate connection to her emotional state. "This is unprecedented," she said. "The resonance ritual has never had this effect on any visitor before." "It's because he's human," Eleni said, still analyzing her scanner readings. "Their species has an extraordinary capacity for adaptation. It's why they've spread so successfully throughout the galaxy, despite being relatively new to interstellar travel." Kida remained standing, her arms crossed in her characteristic pose, but Trent could sense her concern beneath her composed exterior. "Is this transformation permanent?" "Unknown," Eleni replied, "but it presents an unexpected opportunity. If Trent's biology is adapting to ours, it might accelerate the development of the synthetic compound I'm working on." Trent stood, suddenly restless. "I need air. This is a lot to process." "Of course," Lila said, understanding in her voice, "but perhaps not alone. The settlement will notice your changes. It might cause unnecessary concern." Trent nodded, acknowledging the wisdom in her suggestion. As they left the guest house together, he became increasingly aware of how right she was. His senses continued to sharpen. He could distinguish individual scents on the morning breeze, hear the subtle variations in the women's heartbeats as they walked beside him. More disconcerting was how the settlement's inhabitants reacted to him. Women stopped and stared, not with the curiosity of yesterday, but with something closer to awe. Some even bowed their heads slightly as he passed. "Why are they looking at me like that?" he asked quietly. "Your aura," Kida explained. "What appears as a subtle glow to us is much more visible to those with the right sensitivity. You're radiating energy similar to our most accomplished elders." They led him to Eleni's laboratory, a building near the settlement center filled with equipment that blended advanced technology with what appeared to be ritual objects. Once inside, Eleni immediately began preparing instruments while Lila guided Trent to a comfortable chair. "I'd like to run some tests, with your permission," Eleni said. "Nothing invasive, just monitoring your biological responses to various stimuli." Trent nodded his consent, still trying to process the morning's revelations. As Eleni attached sensors to his temples and wrists, he turned to Kida. "You're worried," he stated, not a question, but a certainty born of his new awareness. Kida met his gaze directly. "Yes, not about you specifically, but about what this means. Changes like yours don't go unnoticed in the wider galaxy. If word spreads about a human with these abilities..." "I'd become a target," Trent finished her thought. His military training immediately assessed the strategic implications. A human with Navalian perceptive abilities would be valuable to numerous factions. Governments, corporations, perhaps even the same authorities who had conscripted Nebulus's males. "It's not just that," Lila added, her hand resting lightly on his shoulder. "The connection between us has clearly deepened beyond what the ritual typically creates. That has implications." "What kind of implications?" Trent asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. "In our culture," Lila explained carefully, "such a connection is the foundation of a life bond, a permanent partnership. It's not something we expected or sought with an off-worlder, but it appears to be happening nonetheless." Trent absorbed this information, surprised to find that the prospect didn't alarm him as much as it should. The wandering he'd done since leaving military service had been aimless, a search for something he couldn't define. The connection he felt with these three women, complicated as it was, felt more meaningful than anything he'd experienced in years. "So," he said finally, looking between the three of them, "where do we go from here?" 3 months after arriving in Nevelis, seeking only a place to sleep, Trent stood before the holographic display in Eleni's laboratory, watching as the final simulation completed its run. The complex molecular structures rotating on the screen represented the culmination of their work, a synthetic compound derived from his unique biology that could permanently free the Navalian females from their pheromone dependency. "It's stable," Eleni announced, her voice filled with quiet triumph. "The compound will self-replicate within Navalian cellular structures without degradation." She turned to him, silver eyes shining. "We did it, Trent." He smiled, feeling the waves of her excitement through their bond. Over the past months, his transformation had stabilized. The blue glow beneath his skin, now a permanent feature, his enhanced senses and perception a new normal. More significant was the deepened connection with Lila, Kita, and Eleni, which had evolved into something beyond what any of them had initially imagined. "We should celebrate," Lila declared, entering the lab with Kita. Both women immediately sensed the success through their shared bond. "The Council has approved our transmission to the Galactic Coalition. It goes out tonight." The transmission was Trent's other major accomplishment, a formal diplomatic petition leveraging his unique status as both human and now partially Nivalian. Using contacts from his military days and the undeniable evidence of his biological transformation, he had crafted a compelling case for the Coalition to intervene in the conscription of Nivalis' males. "Do you think they'll respond?" Kita asked, her natural caution tempering their celebration. "They'll respond," Trent assured her, drawing her into an embrace that sent ripples of warmth through their connection. "Humans have significant influence in the Coalition. When they see what's happened here, a successful integration of human and Nivalian biology, they'll be falling over themselves to establish formal relations." "And relations are what you're best at, aren't they?" Lila teased, her fingers tracing the now familiar path along his jawline that never failed to send shivers down his spine. Eleni laughed, setting aside her scientific instruments to join them. "I never thought I'd be grateful for a fuel line malfunction, but if your shuttle hadn't needed repairs, I'd have missed the most important discovery of my life," Trent finished, pulling her close as well. Their relationship had scandalized some of the more traditional Nivalians at first. One human male bonded with 3 females was unprecedented even in their flexible social structure. But as Trent's presence began visibly improving the health of the entire settlement through Eleni's treatments derived from his biology, objections faded into acceptance and eventually admiration. "The first distribution of the compound is ready," Eleni said. "We can begin treatments for the entire settlement tomorrow." "And not a moment too soon, none," Kita added. "The reports from the mining colony are concerning. Conditions are deteriorating." Trent nodded grimly. Through their diplomatic channels, they'd learned that the temporary conscription had been extended indefinitely, with the mining corporation exploiting legal loopholes to keep their labor force. The males of Nivalis were working in increasingly dangerous conditions, with inadequate safety measures and dwindling supplies. "The Coalition will act," Trent assured them. "They can't ignore a direct petition from a human Nivalian hybrid representative, especially with evidence of corporate violations of interstellar labor laws." That evening, they gathered with the settlement's council in the communication center as their petition was transmitted to the Galactic Coalition headquarters. Matriarch Selene performed a blessing ritual over the transmission, her aged hands glowing with the same blue luminescence that now marked Trent's skin. "May our words travel true and return with justice," she intoned. Later, in the privacy of the home they now shared, Trent and his 3 bondmates celebrated in their own way. Their connection had grown so profound that physical intimacy had become an extension of their mental and emotional bond. Each touch, each caress, amplified by their shared awareness of one another's pleasure and desire. "I still can't believe you only plan to stay one night," Lila murmured against his shoulder afterward, her silver hair spilling across his chest. "Best change of plans I ever made," Trent replied, feeling the contented hum of agreement through their bond. Kita, usually the most reserved, traced the glowing patterns beneath his skin. "You've changed us all, Trent Morgan, not just biologically." "You've changed me too," he acknowledged. "I was lost before I found you, before you found me." Eleni, ever the scientist, propped herself up on one elbow. "The transformation appears to be continuing, albeit more slowly now. Your cellular structure is still adapting, becoming more Nivalian while remaining fundamentally human." "The best of both worlds," Lila said with a smile. Their peaceful moment was interrupted by an urgent chime from the communication console. Kita, ever vigilant, was the first to respond, wrapping herself in a robe as she moved to answer. "It's from the Coalition," she announced, surprise evident in her voice. "They've responded already." They gathered around the console as the message played. The Coalition had not only received their petition, but had taken immediate action. An investigation had been launched into the mining corporation's practices, and preliminary findings had already uncovered numerous violations of interstellar law. "They're sending a delegation," Trent read, his enhanced vision easily processing the detailed message. to negotiate the immediate release of all conscripted workers and establish formal diplomatic relations with Nevelus, with me as the official liaison between humans and Navalians. They're recognizing us, Alani whispered, amazed. A tiny settlement like ours, getting formal recognition. They're recognizing him, Lila corrected, squeezing Trent's hand. The first human-Navalian hybrid in recorded history. A living bridge between species. 6 weeks later, Trent stood at Nevelus's northern gate once again, but this time not as a weary traveler seeking rest. Now he waited as the official representative of the settlement, his blue-tinged skin glowing visibly in the late afternoon light, flanked by his 3 bondmates and the Council of Elders. The Coalition transport ship descended smoothly, its doors opening to reveal not just the promised delegation, but the first group of returning Navalian males, freed ahead of schedule as a gesture of good faith while negotiations continued. As families reunited amid tears and laughter, Trent felt a profound sense of completion. What had begun as a simple search for a place to sleep had transformed into something far greater. A home, a purpose, a family of his own. Not bad for a guy who just wanted a bed for the night, he murmured. Lila laughed, the sound like music to his enhanced hearing. We always had bigger plans for you, Trent Morgan. And I wouldn't have it any other way, he replied, drawing her close as they watched the beginning of Nevelus's new chapter unfold before them. 1 year after the return of Nevelus's males, the settlement had flourished beyond anyone's expectations. The synthetic compound derived from Trent's biology had not only freed the females from their dependency, but had enhanced their natural abilities. Trade agreements negotiated through the Galactic Coalition had brought prosperity, and Nevelus had grown from an isolated outpost to a thriving community recognized throughout the sector. At the edge of the settlement, nestled against the foothills where the bioluminescent forest began, stood a home unlike any other in Neveli, a harmonious blend of human and Navalian architecture. Inside, Trent Morgan sat on the terrace overlooking the valley, watching the twin suns sink toward the horizon. The soft sound of bare feet on stone announced Lila's arrival before her arms slipped around his shoulders from behind. Her silver hair cascaded forward, catching the fading sunlight. "Thinking deep thoughts again?" she murmured against his ear, sending a pleasant shiver down his spine. "Just appreciating the view," Trent replied, reaching up to touch her face. The connection between them flared instantly, that unique bond that had only grown stronger with time. "Which view?" Kita asked as she emerged from inside, her usual authoritative demeanor softened in the privacy of their home. She had recently been appointed head of Nevelus's new security council, her natural leadership finally recognized beyond the settlement's borders. "All of them," Trent answered honestly, extending his hand to her. When she took it, their energies synchronized immediately, the blue glow beneath their skin pulsing in unison. Ilalani joined them last, carrying a flask of the ceremonial wine they'd first shared during the ritual that had changed everything. "The latest analysis confirms it," she announced, her scientific precision giving way to excitement. "The changes are permanent in all of us. The bond will never fade." They had wondered in the early days if their connection might diminish over time, if the biological changes might reverse or the emotional bonds weaken. But a year of intimate companionship had only deepened what they shared, creating something unique in the galaxy. A perfect synthesis of human passion and Navalian spiritual connection. "I propose a toast," Lila said, as Alani poured the luminescent wine into 4 glasses, "to the human who only wanted a place to sleep and found a place to belong instead," Kita added, her silver eyes gleaming with rare emotion. "To unexpected journeys," Alani continued, "and discoveries that change worlds." Trent raised his glass, looking at each of them in turn. Lila with her boundless spirit, Kita with her steadfast strength, Alani with her brilliant mind. 3 extraordinary women who had transformed his life as surely as he had transformed theirs. "To bigger plans than I ever imagined," he finished, his voice thick with emotion. As they drank, the bond between them pulsed with shared feeling, love, desire, belonging, and something deeper that transcended simple emotion. In the fading light, their skin glowed with the same resonant energy, 4 hearts beating in perfect synchronization. Later, as they retired to their shared chamber, The physical expression of their bond was as natural as breathing, each touch amplified by their shared awareness, each moment of passion deepened by the complete understanding that only their unique connection could provide. In the quiet aftermath, as they lay entwined in the soft darkness, Trent reflected that his military career had taken him to 17 star systems in countless worlds. But he'd never found what he'd been searching for until he stumbled upon a small settlement where 3 blue-skinned women waited on the steps of a guest house. He'd only wanted a place to sleep. They'd given him a place to live, to love, to belong. And in the gentle glow of their shared biology, in the perfect harmony of their 4-way bond, Trent Morgan, once a wanderer among the stars, had finally found his home.